Good day. Welcome to Music Motors. Welcome to this, the 2020 MG HS. MG have been around for more years than I can remember. Back in the olden days, the good days of motoring, they made proper sports cars, and since then things have changed. Ownerships have passed through hands, and now they're making something which is for the everyday person, a bit like they were when they were originally set up. The 2020 HS is powered by a 1.5 litre petrol engine which produces 162 PS, so call that 160 horsepower, 250 newton meters of torque, gets to 62 miles an hour in 9.9 seconds, tops out at 118 miles an hour. Base cost of a very bottom end Excite is £18,000-ish on the road. If you go for this executive with, well, loads of technology and loads of things as standard, well, that's about 23. If you want it as a DCT, add about 1,500 quid to that. But the main thing is that this is a car which is not only affordable, but it in theory looks quite good, looks alike to a lot of the competitors, and doesn't drive like previous generation MGs that we've seen. No offense to the previous generation MGs, but this is a whole class above. So in this episode of Music Motors, I'm going to talk about the 2020 MG HS, how it does from an everyday point of view, and just a little bit more about it that maybe some other people haven't covered. It's time to find out how this does around town. Now, unlike the gig test, this focuses the testing around town. How does it do in economy? How does it do on comfort? And how does it do on drive? This is to find out just how well it does and how close it is on paper to what they claim it can get. So let's find out. There was more traffic than I was expecting, but about 15 miles later, it's in around 40 miles to the gallon, so not bad by any means. And especially when you consider the size of the engine that's moving this, it's pretty impressive. Visibility the whole way around is relatively good, no bulging arches at the front, so when you're trying to get through tighter gaps, it's not impossible. Comfort-wise, it holds the road very, very well, and the seats are quite comfortable. There is a little bit of wind noise, and the tyres are a bit more noisy than on some competitor vehicles, but for what this is and what it's meant to do, I was really impressed by that. Decent fuel economy, good drive, good sound system, good job. Exterior wise, normally if I said a manufacturer had a design which was in keeping with a lot of the competition, that'd be a bad thing. If Audi had a look which was just like a Jaguar or just like a BMW, that's a bad thing because they're not stepping out the box. But the problem is for MG that people don't fully trust their designs. I do, I quite like them. And whilst this does have MG design aesthetics all over it, from a language point of view, at the front end, if you took the MG badge off and replaced it with a Mazda, that wouldn't look out of place and it wouldn't look out of proportion. It's remarkably close. So from that point of view, the front end looks good. It's not totally bold and not totally in your face, but is a comfortable design that anyone could appreciate because so many manufacturers are using that type of design language. The side profile definitely hints at it being a bit more of a, shall we say, off-roader, even though it's only a two-wheel drive. But at the same time, it's not so bulbous and in your face that it fits in as a sleek, almost executive type of car. The side profile point of view, your wheels, you standard, you get 17s on the bottom end Excite. If you go for Explore or you go for Executive, you do then end up getting 18s. Now these 18s look very, very cool. Whilst they're not diamond cut, they are powder coated. It's a nice, simple design, and it just makes it a bit nice on the outside in that it's not too shouty, not too garish. It's quite simple and easy to understand. The back end, funnily enough, I can see a bit of BMW, a bit of Mercedes, and a bit of previous MG design language, which has all been put in. So as a result, it means that it's just a look that you can kind of appreciate. Whilst the proportions on the back end aren't quite as nice as maybe I would like for me, by no means are they ugly. They're good design aesthetics. In total, the outside does look quite good. Now this black colour is an option. If you don't want to pay for any paint on an MG HS, you do get Glacier White as a standard, a free paint colour. This black does look very good, but it looks best when it's clean. In fact, this car in general looks very, very good when it's clean. As soon as it starts to get dirty, it kind of loses that executive, almost luxurious feel. You are joining me on one of the windiest and most stormy nights that the UK has seen in a very long time. Storm Dennis has hit and I'm driving to a gig. This is my gig test. Now, everything's in the boot except the base, which just had to go on the back seat. A bit of a letdown because I did expect that it would be able to fit everything in, but the boot's surprisingly small considering the size of the vehicle. But it's time to see what the fuel economy is like, how this deals with between 55 and 85 mile an hour winds on the south coast, and how it can really deal with everyday life. And I'll give you a summary, and there should be some playing this week because I can actually take the camera in this time. Okay, so I arrived and I got 46 miles to the gallon combined. Extraordinarily windy, and this dealt with it pretty well. I mean, there are side winds that in any car this will get really affected by slightly more wind noise than you would expect in a vehicle of this size, because you'd expect there'd be more padding. But that kind of goes inherently with the cost. The drive wise is absolutely fine, it's very comfortable. The position that you're in and the visibility that you get as you're driving is great. I mean, for a drive to a gig you can ask for much more. Maybe slightly more power if you were to do more overtakes, but that's it. Gig done, home time. Time to see how this deals with more wind, more rain. Don't know if there are going to be trees down. There's going to be lots of rubbish all over the roads, and then I'll give you the final combined fuel economy when I get to the other end and my general thoughts. That was, without any shadow of doubt in my mind, the stormiest weather, at least gustiest I've ever had to drive in, and this dealt with it pretty well. You do hear quite a lot of wind noise, but not significantly more. In the ZS it is quite noticeable, in this it isn't too bad, especially considering the amount of wind this was hitting. Road noise wise, it does have a little bit more of a loud interior volume than you would expect at 60-70 miles an hour, but generally it's still pretty comfortable. It doesn't get too much in your face. Fuel economy wise, I got an average of 44.7 miles per gallon, which, considering the type of oncoming winds and the type of weather I was dealing with, it was actually pretty decent of a return. So from that point of view, it's pretty good. It was comfortable, the visibility was good, it had all the amenities you could possibly want. So from that aspect as well, had everything you could want. When you get inside the HS is where it really surprises you, because you expect it to be, it's an MG, the most expensive one as a manual is £23,000 on the road. Can it really have that nice of an interior? Now, yeah, it can. So it's got leather seats, actual leather electric seats, which is totally mad for the price point. You've then got a lovely 10-inch display in front of you here. You've then got another display in front as a driver, kind of a mix between analog and digital, which is lovely. And if that's 10, I'm going to say this is about 7. But you'll also find it's quite comfortable, the visibility is quite nice, and generally in the front end it's great. The infotainment system itself is actually very intuitive, very good to use. It does run on all specifications, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. If you go for anything below, I believe, an executive, you do only get 4 speakers, but you get 6 speakers if you go for an executive. It's a decent sounding sound system, though it does require a little bit of alteration in the EQ, but that's about it. When it comes to your rear seat passengers, they have loads of room, and it's a very comfortable place for them to be, in that the seats are slightly reclined, so it makes it very comfortable for them, which is a lovely touch, because it means that not only have they got loads of leg room, they're in a really comfortable position. You've then got a huge panoramic sunroof that they can just look up and adore the world around them. And back there, it gives you everything you need, and it's ISOFIX, so family friendly. When you get to the boot, this is one of the biggest letdowns of the car, because when you get in it, you're like, well, the lip's quite high, that's not the end of the world. You know, Nissan Leaf's got quite a high lip, it's got a really deep boot, and this doesn't. So I lifted up the floor, and underneath the floor there's space for a full-size tyre, but it's not there. Probably because it knocks the emissions down, because you're knocking weight out of it. But the problem is,
they've wasted the space by not redesigning it. You could have an adjustable boot floor, which would give you loads more space. And if it had that, I could forgive it for the high lip entry point, but it doesn't, and it's a real shame. It does fit most stuff, but it's not a very deep and tall boot. Wide-ish, but it's a real shame that it's a bit of a waste of space. They could have done so much more with it. Inside on a run is relatively quiet, though you do get a bit of wind noise. Road noise isn't too OTT, but it's definitely louder than the competition. Wind noise itself, not as bad as things like the ZS. It generally does a pretty good job of ensuring that you are comfortable. Heated seats on this to give you an even nicer, comfortable ride. And really, genuinely, from an interior point of view, it is extraordinarily good, and it is so much better than you think an MG would be able to achieve, not only because of the brand but because of the point. MG is showing that they're worth so much more than we gave them credit for, and they're so much more than they have been in the past. This is a world apart from the MG3. Performance wise, as I said, this is a petrol, so it's a 1.5 litre petrol 4-cylinder turbo. It's 9.9 seconds to 62 miles an hour, and it will top out at 118 miles an hour. Take all that into consideration. With the fact that it's a 1.5, that's not too bad. A 5-speed box? No, we get better than that. We get a 6-speed box or a DCT gearbox. That DCT is around about a £1,500 option on top of the cost of the car. It's a decent engine, but at times does feel a little bit lumpy when it's being pushed. It doesn't feel as smooth as the rival engines, but you know, it's considerably cheaper than the rivals, so you can kind of forgive it for that point of view. From a driving characteristic point of view, yeah, it's a little lackluster. Yeah, the pedals don't give you much feedback, but they give you enough. You have to push a little bit harder on the brake than you would do in competitor vehicles. You really have to get the hammer down on this. Where I've this week gone from so many different types of vehicles, this is the one where the brakes felt the most uneasy, but it's not bad, you just have to get used to it. From the driving input point of view, it doesn't give you loads of feedback, but you do get a little bit off the road. It's surprisingly good in handling, in that it just kind of grips the road. No matter the surface, no matter how fast you're going, it does a really, really good job of just holding on. You'll then also notice that you do get very little body roll. It's most definitely there. For a vehicle of this size and a vehicle of this price point, it's minimal in comparison of what you expect. Fuel economy wise, they claim around about 30 at worst, about 42 at best. And I've seen 46 out of this and above at best, and 30 is a fair call. If you're stuck around town, yeah, you probably will only see 30 miles to the gallon if you're stuck in heavy traffic, central London traffic. But if you're on a run and you're not stuck in the middle of a storm with heavy crosswinds and head-on winds, you will see more than I've tended to see. It's been a horrible time of year to be testing a car like this for fuel economy, because the weather will affect it significantly. Crosswinds wise, it does deal with it quite well. You can feel they're there, but aerodynamically this seems to deal with it in a pretty good way. Outside then, this looks like a lot of the competitors, but that's a good thing. If any other brand did it, you'd be worried, but MG have done it because they want to give you confidence. Look, we're not going to give you crazy design, but it's something that you've seen before, something you trust with a bit of our quirk. It is MG design language on the outside. It does look good, and I've seen these in a multitude of different specifications now, and they all look pretty good. That interior point of view, there isn't a single manufacturer that are producing cars that cost as little as this does that have an interior anything like this. It's a really comfortable and nice place to be, really well finished, tons of amenities, loads of technology. It's a quality interior, genuinely a quality interior, and I'm really surprised, but I'm so glad they've managed to do it. Let's see if it stands the test of time. Yeah, sure. But from this point of view, where I'm looking at it, it looks incredible. Performance and economy, whilst it's not totally shouty and in your face with performance and get up and go, it does a really, really good job. What I found most interesting was the fact that really this shouldn't be as good a performance as it is, in that it's a cheaper SUV. How can a cheaper SUV be even half as good as this is in performance? Because none of the money's been invested into that technology, but it does it. It handles really well. The engine economy is relatively good. Yeah, sure, the steering is a tiny bit lackluster, but so are the competition vehicles. Competitor vehicles are exactly the same. So from a price point on top of that, it's just a no-brainer. If you want to take a risk and you're looking for an SUV but you want something slightly different, the MG HS is most definitely something you should consider, at least go and try. Because whilst you may not have trusted them in the past, this HS is MG's way of saying, no, we've taken on board your criticism and we're a lot better now.